When you were young, at school, what's the first thing you think of? Is it an old friend you haven't seen for some time? Is it playing handball? Is it just the simplicity of childhood? Well, what I think of is this. Yeah, this thing. I remember this here machine and the way it changed the simple lunchbox item, the apple. I remember the lines that snaked around the hall, twirling like the slinkies that we waited for. I would go and get an apple slinky probably every time they pulled the machine out, and me and my friend would get the skin with it. We'd sit down and eat the apple and spiral it into our mouths. He always had a red apple, and I always had a green apple. I loved apple slinkies, and I think it's a great analogy for my childhood. It was simple and silly most of the time, but sometimes there were these sour hits, which was somewhat unpleasant. So, what is this video you're here watching? Well, what is it? Well, I'm not going to make this too bloated for you, or full of long-winded words which I, personally, don't understand the meaning of. In short, this is a video essay on green apples. In the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve attempted to eat a forbidden fruit which grows in the Garden of Eden. The pair eat the fruit, creating the first original sin, as you know. The story itself is a metaphor for giving into temptation or just immoral actions in general. The forbidden fruit is often depicted as a red apple and grows from a tree as an apple does. I personally feel this is a logical point to start. Apples have been a part of humanity's history and culture, but often, when depicted, I find they're red. So where's the love for green apples? If red apples depict vice and sin, as in the book of Genesis, would green apples be the opposite? A sign of virtue or freedom, religious divinity or purpose? These questions will not be answered. Maybe I think apples, which are green, need to be more loved. Think of those questions I posed just there as some food for thought, like a delicious green apple. The green apple is a type of apple, but has green skin. All apples consist of the exact same structure, of which we will get into later. But the only variation really is the color and taste. There are three main types of apples. There's the popular red apple, which is red, the less popular green apple, which is green, and the forgettable and alien yellow apple, which is yellow. And the yellow apple, just to have a quick tangent, was obviously created by the Russians during the Cold War. All apples have the exact same structure. A stalk at the top, a core in the middle which holds the seeds and is surrounded by flesh. The flesh is known as the mesocarp of pulp, and the skin is known as the exocarp. The stalk is where the apple was once connected to the tree. So it's sort of like the umbilical cord for a human baby. So, in a way, you're eating a tree's child. Let's get into some dietary information, shall we? The Granny Smith apple are known for their green color and sour taste. One of these apples alone has 63 calories, 10.5 grams of sugar, 0.2 grams of fat, and 109 grams of vitamin A. A steak has 122 calories, which is significantly more than a Granny Smith apple. So why does this matter? Why does this matter? Well, compare the Granny Smith apple to a Pink Lady apple. Probably one of the most well-known apples around. The Pink Lady apple, it has 59 calories, 0.4 grams of fat, 11.9 grams of sugar, and get this, 88 milligrams of potassium. So in terms of health, a Granny Smith apple is significantly better for you compared to the Pink Lady apple, for the reasons I just gave. My apple of choice has always been the Granny Smith apple. The Granny Smith was actually named after Maria
Anne Smith, who was an English orchidist. She came from a family of orchidists who grew apples across England. She married Thomas Smith, another farmer, and they had 8 children, 3 of which died as infants. They decided to migrate to Sydney, Australia, due to government benefits. The Smith family consists of Maria, Thomas, and their 5 children, and they arrived in Sydney in 1838. The family began working in Sydney's fruit-growing district during the mid-1850s. They bought their own land and started their own farm. Maria got the nickname Maria Granny Smith from presumably her community and her grandchildren. She later died on the 9th of March, 1870. Where the Granny Smith apple originated from is unclear, but it is suggested that the Granny Smith's closest relative is the French crab apple, which was grown in Tasmania, in Australia. Visually, the French crab apple is similar to the Granny Smith apple with a muted green color, and the apple is sometimes red. No red apple doesn't have a name like Granny Smith. Now, we live in a society that not only neglects green apples, but is controlled by corporation. When you think of an apple, well, I hope you don't think of an apple. But when you Google Apple and click images, the top result is Apple's logo, the corporation which owns and develops an array of products. Apple is working with red apples to ignore the importance of green apples, to subvert and censor contemporary culture. So what do I propose we do? What's my call to action? What do I think we should do to make green apples more loved? I think we create our own new folk legends. We spread the history of Maria Granny Smith, and we make myths about green apples. We say green apples make you live longer and give you better eyesight. Let red apples be the symbol of the old, myth and religion. Allow green apples to be symbolic of modern society. Use the hashtag I support green apples, or ISGA for short. Let's give green apples the appreciation and respect they deserve.